Hello everyone and welcome to Tokyo 2025 with myself, Ross Tucker, and Gareth Davies for day 2 coverage from the Tokyo World Championships. And what a day. We saw the fastest man and woman in the world crowned for yet another cycle. We saw a sprint finish in a marathon, and we saw what I think must be one of the greatest upsets in certainly that I can remember in track and field in the men's 10,000, and we are going to do our best to recap it. I've had a hell of a day. I had to travel on the train down from York via London, then off to Reading, dragging a bike bag. Would not recommend. I try to get a taxi, and the taxi looks at the size of the bag and shakes his head. He says no. So I had to walk everywhere dragging this carcass of a bag behind me. Would not suggest it. But I made it. I made it in time to at least catch the athletics. Even in between meetings, we had a very opportunely timed tea break, during which time I got to watch the 100-meter finals, men and women. And that, I think, is where we are going to start, right? We'll start with the 100-meter title for women, which neither of us predicted. We changed our minds, Gareth. That was the problem.
I didn't change my mind. You changed your mind. I was with Alfred all the way.
Were you? I was with before the championship started, but I saw Alfred in the heats yesterday, and I managed to persuade myself that she was coming into just enough form to beat Jefferson-Wooden, and we were wrong.
We were 100% wrong because Jefferson-Wooden absolutely blitzed the field, and Alfred didn't even look like she was in contention. In fact, she only got bronze, didn't she, after Tia Clayton? So Jefferson-Wooden got a 10.61 championship record, and I think that's the 4th fastest run of all time.
Yeah, I think it made her the 3rd fastest woman, or did they say 3 have gone faster than her? Obviously, the world record, Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce, we'll get onto her in a moment, and then
Sport.
Yeah, I mean, 10.61, second place was 10.74, so that's a 0.15 victory, and then 0.08 to third. I think it was the biggest margins between first, second, and second, third in a long time. I went back and had a look, and back in 2013, Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce won a gold by 0.22 ahead of second place in that particular race, I think it was. But pretty much every other one since then, so that's out of the last 7, have been closer. And so to win it by 0.14, and then, as I say, a pretty big gap to third, this was not as close as I thought it would be.
No, I thought Alfred was going to be a lot more competitive. But then again, I mean, she ran a 10.93, and Jefferson-Wooden, what can you do if somebody's going to run that quickly? It's all over, bar the shouting. There was a few little things. There was a few wobbles, weren't there, in the semi-finals with Richardson, who just sneaked through yet again, but she couldn't do anything about it. The old guard of Talu Smith, Sharika Jackson, and Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce, they came 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, that's up on the screen now for those of you watching it. But yeah, Jackson 4th, Sha'Carri Richardson was 5th, Fraser-Pryce 6th, Talu Smith 7, and then Dina Asher-Smith rounded out the finalists there. But yeah, the semis was interesting actually, because if we'd recorded a pod between the semis and finals, I reckon we both would have changed our pick, because Jefferson-Wooden looked really good in the semi-final. Alfred didn't look bad, but there was a difference between them there. I think you could see it. And with the benefit of hindsight, maybe Jefferson-Wooden was always winning this race. Richardson was interesting. It had the same feeling. Remember Budapest, she made it through to the final as a fastest loser after a very poor start. And so you sort of got the sense, what if, is this going to happen again? But considering that she hadn't really gone under 11 seconds all year, and you knew that whoever won this was going to go 10.7 or faster, it always looked like too much to ask from Richardson, and it was in the end. She runs a season's best 10.94 to come 5th. But really the story is Jefferson-Wooden, who, I looked at it before the championships, I've now forgotten, but I reckon has 6 out of the top 7 times in the world this year, has won everything she's tried to win. And so not winning this gold would have been a very poor end to what has been an absolutely dominant season for her.
Mm-hmm. I just realised I was reading the semi-final results. That's why I got them in the wrong order. So but it still stands. It was lovely to see Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce qualify as well. So she ran her final 100-meter final. She will be competing in the 4x100. So it's not quite over for her yet. Yeah, a chance for a medal.
For sure. Nice to go out on your own terms, I would imagine. I'm sure she would have liked a medal, but that was always going to be a long shot after the last year or two that
We're going
she's
to be
had.
we're going to be playing a little game today, which I didn't tell you about, and that's called the world record game. So in this next Olympic cycle, is the women's 100-meter record going to go?
No.
Because she's not far off it.
No, but Sharika Jackson got close. Remember, she was threatening it. Fraser Price got close. More likely not than yes. You think she'll get it?
She was so impressive today. So
The one thing
impressive.
yeah. The one thing I will say is that it was humid in Tokyo, and they said extremely still. So if you gave her a little bit of dry air with a slight wind behind, that's a 10.5 something. So maybe I'm coming around to the possibility, but I don't know. You've seen athletes get close and then they just can't do it again the year after. I'll be more persuaded that she'll get it in 2027 if she's as fast in 26.
Well, I think if anybody's going to do it, it's her. That was a outstanding run today.
Yeah,
and we had
complete
another
dominance.
outstanding run in the men's, and not quite as close to the world record, but Oblique Seville came from behind after his semi-final stumble.
Yeah, he got his bad error out the way, and he looked much better in the semi-finals, to the extent that some of us predicted it.
You predicted it. I'll give you that one. I did call you a smart ass at the time because I blanked it from my memory, but you did. What did you actually say?
Those who are on YouTube will actually see exactly what I said because we screenshotted our WhatsApp conversation. I said Seville is the guy. If he's relaxed, he's got a sub 9.8 in him. I can't see anyone else doing a sub 9.8. And your prediction was?
I think he'll blow the final.
And I said he'll blow it wide open for gold is what he's going to do. And sure enough, he did. So he wins it in 9.77 was the official result, I think. 9.82, Keishawn Thompson in seconds from Jamaica. So that's actually the first time, I think, in some time since Usain Bolt that a non-US athlete has won this title. Lyles.
I think since 2015, I think was the last time, which was Bolt.
That's right, yeah. So Lyles was the defending champion. He was third, which I think is a good result actually for him because in the semi and all through the season, he just hasn't quite looked like the Lyles we knew in the past. He runs 9.89 in this final to get third, which is a good performance. But I just in the semi-final, he got the usual slow start. He didn't pull away from the Nigerian the way that you thought he would. And I just didn't think he had it. So I was actually surprised that he got third. Bednarek was fourth. He'll be kicking himself because of the 8 in the final. He's the one who really made a mistake at the start. He got left in the blocks a little bit there. So he'll be disappointed because I think he'll look at that as a medal lost for sure.
Well, his start wasn't as bad as Tebogo's.
That's true. So let's comment on that. Letsile Tebogo, who's the Olympic 200-meter champion, was disqualified from this race. So we never know how he was going to go against these guys.
Yeah, he got the red card. I think we had the full range of cards today. I think we had a green, a yellow, and a red. It was going a bit card crazy out there for a while.
Yeah, and it seems to me they've wanted to err on the side of letting athletes run. Because it was Richardson in the semi for the women, looked like a real obvious twitch, and they green carded the field. They yellow carded De Grasse in the men's semi-final, and then Tebogo gave them no choice. It was such a blatantly obvious false start that he had to go.
I think he was hedging his bet slightly, wasn't he? He was just giving it a go because he's not the fastest in that field.
Yeah,
Bednarek's start really did cost him a medal, I think.
Yeah, his reaction time was 0.211. I saw there now, by far the slowest in the field. But the slow reaction's compounded by the fact that he just in the drive phase through the first 10 meters just was left cold, and he came back really well. And I think based on what we saw in the semi, he was faster than he showed in that final. I think he ran 9.85 in the semi, right? And then
he was a different runner in the semi.
I'll bring those results back up there. 9.92. So we said yesterday in the pod, there's always someone who goes slower in the final than the semi, and that today was Bednarek. Seville got faster, Thompson got faster, Lyles was faster, and Bednarek is the one who lost 0.07 of a second compared to his semi, and that's the difference. He's as a consequence in fourth, not third. So, yeah,
Indeed.
it's pretty for him.
I think you were right. You said earlier on, I was very disappointed in Simbini. He just wasn't in contention after he'd started the season so well. But and I think you mentioned a while ago in Spotlight that his season was just dragging on too long, and I think it did show.
I think he definitely won the first two Diamond Leagues, the Asian leagues, in China. I think he may have won the first three. And he was the number one guy. But the problem was he's number one guy in May and June. And then you say, how are you going to be there still? Because you're winning those races in 9.95 to 10 seconds. By the time September rolls around, you're going to have to run 9.8 something to win a medal, which is exactly how it transpired. And it's just the season's too long. He ran World Indoors. He got a medal there. And that was in March, I think. So I think the lesson is go away. And I think he's also coming to the end of what has been an unbelievably good career, but not a decorated one, which is a real shame for him. But he was beaten by another South African today. So that felt a little bit from our South African perspective, if you'll allow me that, to almost be a changing of the guard. I've got that, just pull that result up again. So Gift Leotlela was fifth today in 9.95, two ahead of Simbini, who didn't break 10 seconds in the final, which is obviously disappointing for him.
Do you think Thompson's disappointed?
He must be, because he's the Jamaican champion twice now. He's come second twice now, beaten by different people in the last two major championships. And he wasn't as fast today as he was in those Jamaican champs, where he ran, remember, 9.8 in the semi, 0, and 9.78 in the final. So he'd have needed more, but you'd expect to have more in the World Champ final than your national championship. So he must be disappointed.
Indeed.
But from Seville's perspective, just the last word on him, He has in the Diamond League races he's finished with, he's looked absolutely dominant. He's beaten guys by the same margin that he beat them by today. And yesterday was an aberration. The semi looked good, and now this one. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see whether he kicks on, or what his ceiling is as well. Because Jamaica's now got the two best guys in the world. That relay will be pretty good if they can get. I don't know what their third and fourth guys are. The US will be strong. So that'll be a nice way to end these championships, looking further ahead. But yeah, it's. Surprise on the men's side, maybe, but the dominance of Melissa Jefferson-Wooden was confirmed on the women's side.
100%. Well, we'll move up the distances, and we'll go from 100 to 10,000, as it was the men's 10,000 final today, and it started off incredibly slow. I think the first 1,500 meters took 5 minutes, and nobody wanted to go to the front. It was hot and humid. I think it was 31 degrees with the humidity up in the 70s when they started. And they were grabbing cups of water at every opportunity as they were going around. And it continued like that, really, for, I'd say, the first half of the race. Looking at the notes here, Barregata went to the front after about 4 laps. And he put in a 64-second lap, which still isn't very fast, is it? But at least he thought something's got to happen here, because everybody was just and as I said to you at the time, I can see why the 10K is an endangered species, because at that point, I was glad to go back and watch some of the field events, the women's long jump final.
Yeah,
because it was nothing happening at all.
Yeah, this can happen sometimes. I mean, I remember from the 90s watching some 10,000 meter races in Atlanta, 96 Olympics, even Sydney's 10,000, and they stand out to me as among the most memorable events. But you forget that you remember the last 90 seconds, and the preceding 27 minutes is often extremely dull. And that was kind of how this one went. And I think the conditions played into it. We've seen some really fast 10,000s at major champs in the last couple of cycles. I think the Olympic title was won in under 27, I think. Or am I thinking Budapest 23? That was a quick one. But this was a dawdle through the first 3 kilometers, unbelievably slow. I can't remember seeing a race start out this slowly. And they got to 5,000 in 15:12. What was the split there? Let me pull it up there. It will also reveal the winner, but nevertheless, we'll get to that. So if you look at, in fact, the splits, the splits that World Athletics provides stalled at 26. 2,600 meters. Maybe I think you made the joke that the timer fell asleep. The pace was so slow.
It was. Well, you made the comment to me at the time. You said all bets are off when it's this slow.
Yeah,
so it came to pass in the end.
That's the problem. Now you had at 8Ks 22 guys in the front, and at 9Ks there were 20, and at the bell there were 13. And it's so slow at that point that like you cannot predict what's going to happen in the last 300-400 meters when there's that many guys, because to introduce a physiological term, I hope I'm not forcing it in here, but that concept of durability, where you're assessing at the end of a race who's got the kick, but it's not just who's the fastest, it's who's the fastest off the preceding 9,600. It's a 400 durability. When the pace is that slow, no one's had their durability tested, basically. So it's basically become a slightly fatigued 400-meter race, and anything can happen. And it did. It was unbelievable, the last 300 meters.
Because so let's just go through what happened in the race up until then, because not a lot really. There was some quite amusing parts. Fisher ended up on the front by accident because people were using the water stations to sort of grab a cup and sort of drift back because they didn't want to be at the front, and people were tripping over each other just to not be on the front. It was incredible. I think that the couple of Japanese runners, I think they felt obliged almost to take the front to do something for the sake of their home nation, sort of thing. And then with about 2K to go, Almgren started pushing it on, but he wasn't really surging. And then it cut to a long jump. Then it came back, and he was starting to really wind it up. And as you said, the last couple of K, it did start to get a little bit more interesting as they wound it up. And eventually, I think we ended up with Kajelka on the front, didn't we?
Yeah, so Almgren ran a 2:43 for the 9th kilometer, so that was considerably the fastest. But again, to 8K, it was so slow that even a 2:43 hardly did any damage. And so you had 20 guys coming in. But you're right, then Kajalcha gets to the front. Barega, I think, was leading for the Ethiopians at the bell, if memory serves me. I sort of
Barega and Aragawi
yeah.
leading at the bell.
So they would have been the favourites at this point because, you think the Ethiopians have always got the sprint finish ready to fire. So, yeah, but as I say, 20 people at the bell. So what's going to happen? It's a miracle no one fell over, to be honest.
Yeah, especially having watched the women's semis in the 1500. It was like a UFC fighting match out there in the 1500s. But the men managed to not stand on each other's faces, as in the 3,000 meters. And as I say, going down the back straight, Kajelka went for it, followed by the two Americans, Young and Fisher. And the two favourites were dropping back slowly, weren't they? There was about 6 people, I think, 5 or 6 people coming into that bottom bend. And then out of the blue came Jimmy Gressier from France.
Yeah, crazy.
Slaloming his way through the competition.
Absolute carnage. And I think someone was it Kevin on Discourse said how much he just enjoyed the chaos of it. And I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try this. This is a sound file. This is the last 10 seconds on the commentary that we had, and the sound captures the chaos.
Here comes Jimmy Gressier. Is it going to be Jimmy to win it? Jimmy's going to get it. Jimmy Gressier is the world champion.
So Jimmy Gressier. What were the odds of Jimmy Gressier winning that title?
Very slim, I would have thought. I haven't looked at how the bookies had him, but
I was thinking back, like when last was a major track title won by such an outsider? Like Furman Katcher, 92 Olympics in the 15 maybe. There was a Burundian called Venusta Nyongabo won in the 5,000 in Atlanta in 96. But I can't remember such a long shot. And I mean, it's like not to be disrespectful to Gressier because he won the Zurich Diamond League final, no?
Yeah, he won the Zurich Diamond League final. I was just having a look. He came 13th in the Olympics with fair enough his national record. He ran a 26:58. And what was the final of this?
Well, 28:56 was the winning time.
It goes to show anybody can run it, can't they?
Yeah, exactly. But I would not. We've had a Discourse competition going for selections. If anyone picked Jimmy Gressier, please write in on Discourse and tell me, because we will doff our caps to you on tomorrow's show, because that was a completely left field pick if you made it. And so he wins the world title. And I was amazed by a few things. One was how uncompetitive the Kenyans were. Nowhere. And even the Ethiopians, yes, Kajalcha got second place. Let me just put those results up because I don't even think we've shown those results. Kajalcha gets second place and Almgren gets third, and he's the guy who did the work from 8Ks. But we said on yesterday's show that it had been 50-something years since a non-African born winner, right?
Yeah, but I didn't expect it to be.
And yeah, and even the Americans were 5th and 6th. No, 5th and not 6th, way down. See, my screen's again too small. fifth and eighth.
Yeah, Fisher just fell away
Yeah,
completely.
so it's just an extraordinary upset this race, and I mean entertaining the last 2-3 minutes of it. Uh, yeah, it's why they have them, right? Why
I'll
you run it.
show you how slow it was. At the Olympic final last year, out of the 24 finishers, 23 of them were ran faster than this
Yeah,
race. And it goes to show what a lottery it can be. I think Mike of Madison fame on Discourse posted and said, "Why the hell do the favourites let this happen? It's it's just giving everybody a chance. Surely you've just got to go for it. You've got this one chance to do it, and you just let it slip by like this."
yeah, because like they don't even need to do much more than they did because they can run 14:20, 14 minutes through 5K. They're not doing any damage to themselves, but you thin it out just enough that the carnage at the end wouldn't happen. Look, 14 minutes wasn't going to get rid of Jimmy Gressier. He's good enough that he's going to be in that group anyways. But yeah, it was a strange race. Got to be one of the weirdest 10,000 meter races that's ever been run. It's just
As Kevin says, embrace the chaos.
yeah, exactly.
And so we'll move up in distance again and embrace a bit more chaos with the women's marathon, which happened obviously early in the morning, 7:30. It kicked off in Tokyo because of the heat. And when I joined it, sort of thing, when I watched it this morning, because I didn't stay up for it after all, there were two Americans out in front at halfway. We had Susanna Sullivan and McLean. Um, and it's a story, I think, of the old negative positive splits, and we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Mm.
But it turned out to be another classic not Olympic, championship finish, again involving Asifa, and again she came second
Yes,
in a
has to
sprint
burn.
finish. It heartbreaking for her.
Yeah, that's got to hurt a little bit. At least this time there wasn't contact and a little bit of controversy because it was a track sprint. They came into the stadium with 350 to go. And it was Asefa against Perez Jepchirchir, who was the Olympic champion in Tokyo last time they ran a marathon there at a major championships. We both picked Asefa, I think, but Jepchirchir was always going to be one of the big threats. And those two split away from the rest of the field at 25 Ks. The pace was pretty slow. Like they went through halfway in 1:14, so that's a 2:28 tempo. And yes, the conditions make that faster than a typical 1:14. Of course, it's harder to run that pace, but pretty comfortable. And then what happened is they both ran 16:28 for the 5K split from 25 to 30. They did another 16:28 to the 35K mark, and that put them a minute clear of the rest of the field. Now, what was happening behind was pretty interesting and one of the big surprises of the day. But the front two came into the stadium with a comfortable lead. It looked to me that Asefa was the aggressor in the last 5 or 6 Ks. Would you agree? She seemed to be pushing a little bit more often than Jepchirchir, unless Jepchirchir just decided at that point that this was going onto the track and she was going to sit on her heels. Why run next to someone when you can put yourself behind them and they can't see as much of you?
Mm. It's impossible to tell, but she certainly wasn't the aggressor in any way, shape, or form. And I thought one point I was going to make is it was fantastic to see it end on the track. I thought that really added something
Yeah.
to it.
Hmm.
I thought that was far better than the Olympic finish, um, as good as that was. So it is nice to see the marathon finish on the track. I thought that worked really well. But as they got to the track, it was actually Asifa that actually she took the lead on, and she was going to push it. I thought, well, hopefully this time she's got it, but she didn't have the kick again. It's
Yeah, she
after 26 miles, it comes down to the last couple of yards.
It was a good last 350 because Jepchirchir, they go up a ramp and then down it onto the track. Jepchirchir tried to go there. I think she wanted to lead onto the track. Asefa responded, went into the lead, and then Jepchirchir made what turned out to be the decisive move with about 120 to go. And it was a strong move. Jepchirchir is quick. She beat Asefa in the same way in London in 2024. So Asefa must have had thoughts that was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. But yeah, Asefa is... like as we said, that's going to hurt losing two major championships in a row in exactly the same way. But Jepchirchir was just too good for her today. She was gurning from 30 Ks, Jepchirchir. Her facial expressions
Yeah.
did not suggest that she was comfortable, but she was comfortable enough to hang on, and then she just clearly has the better final 120. It's another interesting illustration, I think, of people know Asefa's history. She was a track 800 meter athlete. And there's always this implicit assumption, if they go down to the last 200, the 800 athlete's winning it. But what you see there in the last 200 is not about what you can run for 800. It's about what you can run for 200 after 42,000 meters. And that's where Jepchirchir is just better.
Yeah. The bronze medal went to the famous Julia Patron, who was a name I've never come across before, the Uruguayan runner. And she got bronze in only her second ever marathon, apparently, which is quite remarkable. I don't know how the hell this has happened. A little bit like Jimmy.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they were talking about in the commentary that she was an All England champion. I know that she'd spent some time in the NCAA system, so she's a polished runner in a sense, but an unknown one. Mexican-born, father, they said on the television coverage, is a prof in Cambridge, and Uruguayan parents, so she's a pretty universal character. They said she got 3 passports, and now she's got a bronze medal. But yeah, she was sensible because she was in that lead group at halfway, 1:14. And when it all kicked off at 25 Ks, she clearly didn't try and go with anything. Because there was a group of athletes, the second Ethiopian, Kebede, went. Masai from Kenya was for a long time third on the road. Stella Chisang from Uganda was at one point chasing Masai in 4th place. They all faded. She didn't. And so it's interesting. I went and looked at the splits, and there were only 5 athletes that I could see. Look, I stopped after about 30, but who ran negative splits. And what we mean by that, for those who don't know, is the same pace for the first and second half. A positive split is when you slow down. A negative split is when you speed up. And so obviously the top 2 did, because 1:14 through halfway, and then they ran 1:10 for the second half. So those Jepchirchir and Assefa were moving it in those conditions. To run a 1:10 second half is quick. But in 3rd place, that was also a negative split, because the second half would have been 1:13.23. But she didn't get involved in any of the skirmishes. She just ran the same pace, and she picked off the likes of Masai and Kebede. Masai ended up, I think, not finishing. Kebede was one of the pre-race favourites. She faded horrendously. She ended up in 27th place in a 2:35. So that's a 1:21.30 for the second half. And I saw her last 5Ks was 21:30. So she was really jogging at home. And so that's the risk, especially in hot conditions, is if you go for it and you're risking it to try and win a silver or a gold, you end up costing yourself that bronze. And Patron didn't do that, and hence is the bronze medalist.
Well, that's why I led in with the 2 Americans who were leading at half time, because Sullivan ran a 1:12.58 at halfway, and she finished in 2:28.17. And McLean ran a 1:13.25 and finished in 2:29.20. So they went the other way around. They went out way too hard.
Yeah.
Now Sullivan ended up 4th, but is that all the Americans could do? They ran it a completely different way to the bronze medalist. They went out a lot harder and shot their bolt, sort of thing. But it's a reasonable tactic, or not?
Yeah, I think Sullivan probably looks back and says, I was brave and I did what I could, and for a moment there it looked like they might let me go off the front. Like, what are you thinking if you're that athlete, because there's a half a dozen women in that race who are 2:21 or faster, and maybe you're coming into it and you think, I'm just outgunned. But on the day, given the conditions and the tactical nature of the race, I'm going to give it a go and run what I think is my PB potential. Or not PB, but my best on this day, given these conditions. And I think that's what Sullivan's tried to do. So she's probably said, I think I can run 2:26. And I'm going to go out at halfway and I'm going to hit 1:13. Now, in the end, she's wrong. That's the reality. The clock doesn't lie. She wasn't capable of a 2:26. She was only capable of a 2:29, I think you said. What was her time there in the end?
2:28, was it?
2:28 something. But she's given it a go, and you can totally understand that, because it's probably her best shot. Given what she knows before the race, it's her best shot.
Yeah.
With the benefit of hindsight, running it the way that Patron did was probably a better shot for her. But you can't know that before the time. So she's played the cards she thinks she has, and unfortunately come up 1 place short.
Well, you can't expect some Uruguayan who's ranked 228th in the world rankings in the marathon to come out of nowhere to pip you to 3rd place, can you? So
There's that too.
No, I was surprised to see the Americans leading, but I think it was brave of them. Good effort.
Yeah, and it's in general, I think there's 2 ways you can run that, because you know that you're in that front group at 1:14 at halfway, and you know it's going to kick off somewhere. Someone's going to drop a 17-minute or faster 5K, which is exactly what happens. And now you're Patron and you say, okay, what do I do? And she made exactly the right call. Athletes like Masai and Kibedi, they made the opposite call. They went with it and they paid more dearly. Sullivan didn't want to even get involved in those skirmishes. She's like, I'm going to run my race. And, you know, on another day, maybe she runs 1:13, and she ends up third, because then she's not getting caught even by Patinane's even or negative split. So, yeah, you can't fault the attempt from them, but it's an interesting dilemma. I've always wondered it, because South Africa often sends athletes there with sort of 2:26 to 2:30 performances. And you think you need 3 or 4 of the other athletes to come back to you and have pretty bad days. But what's your best shot? Is it to go with them and hope they drop off and you don't? I don't think it is. I think you run it like Patinane did. Or you say, you guys can go out, you in this case, you women can go out at 2:28, 2:29 pace. I'm going to run 2:26. And if anyone's good enough to beat me, then so be it. And I think that's the bet she took, you know, or the bet she placed. And it didn't work out for her.
No, there we go. Okay, so those are the track events. I'm counting the marathon as a track event as it ended in the stadium.
I also
So we
like
had
that, by the way. Really, really like that. I'm all for track marathons finishing on track, just to add to your opinion earlier.
No, 100%. We had a couple of field events. We had the women's discus, which was won by the US discus thrower Valerie Ullman with the 69.48. Van Klinken of the Netherlands getting the silver, and Morales of Cuba getting the bronze, which just goes to show, I think, that the Americans are probably the best in the world at throwing things.
Indeed. And I was thinking, with the exception of the men's discus, they could well win all the medals in the throwing events. Not the javelin.
Javelin, I was going to say.
The rotational throws.
Okay,
they're good at spinning.
Throws.
You've got to be precise. You've got to say they're good at spinning around and throwing things.
Probably because their president's good at throwing his toys out of the pram or something. I don't know. Let's not get political. We had another field event with the long jump, women's long jump.
Also US,
yeah, US again. Tara Davis Woodhull, who looked again class apart from the rest. My Hambo got the silver for Germany. She's done well in all the Diamond Leagues I've watched. And then we had a Colombian, Linares, who got her personal best for bronze. And one of our members actually just pointed out to me, I think it's George Allen. Thanks for posting, George. He said that if Linares she's had a jump where she didn't have a jump within 10 centimeters of the board. If she'd been slightly closer to the board on her 5th jump, she'd have been upgraded to silver.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show those fine margins again.
Who was it? Was it World Athletics that floated the idea of getting rid of the takeoff line and just having a zone?
It was, yes.
Or was it an athlete? Was it a formal suggestion? They never went through with it. But if that had happened, George would have been correct. Yeah.
They piloted it. I think it's an awful idea.
Yeah, I think the requirement to hit a mark is one of the key elements. Long jump tests that, and it should, I think.
Indeed.
On Davis Woodall, took the lead in round 1. That mark was never bettered except by her in round 5. And I think the winning distance in the end was a world lead. So you really can't ask for much more. She dominated that competition.
Quite the character as well. I like the way she plays. So we got some other stories out of the qualifying this morning, because we had a few qualifying events. The big news, which has been all over the internet, is that in the 1500 meters, Jacob Ingebrigtsen completely floundered on the home straight. He looked like he was running through treacle, and he failed to qualify in the 1500 meters. But he wasn't the only big name to fall, because Koech actually did fall.
Literally,
couldn't get himself back in the race, and the referees adjudged it to be a racing incident, and so he didn't advance him to the next round. And the Frenchman Habs, he was also eliminated from Heat 1. Who
is noteworthy, by the way, because he's the world leader. Fastest time in the world, although that was some months ago. And if ever there was an example of an athlete who peaked and was clearly on the down trajectory, it would be Habs. But yeah, it was... But in effect, we lost 3 of the big 7 in the 1500 in one morning. You were going to ask something, sorry.
I forgot what I was going to ask now. It was about Habs. Were they all in the same heat? I forgot to look.
No, Habs was in the first heat. Koech and Ingebrigtsen were in the same one, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Ingebrigtsen looked awful.
Yeah, I
He
just
just had
didn't.
no kick.
He tried to do what he always does, right? The gun went off, and he kind of let the field go 5 meters ahead of him. So okay, cool, business as usual. But he just didn't have anything. Like there was no moment in that race when he showed that he had any spark at all. So and that's he said afterwards, I think, that he's still going to run the 5,000, and he did say there that he thinks the training sessions he's been doing would be better for the 5,000. So he's given us a hint as to probably where he's been limited. He just hasn't been able to do this necessary top end speed work. Like those 1,500 meter guys would be doing a lot of 200s and 300s. A 5K runner would be doing a lot of 600, 800s, 1K. And it sounds as though he just couldn't get down in distance and up in speed. And it showed today. He just didn't look anything like what we would have expected. And it's hard to see him being competitive in a 5,000 because unless they run that in 12:50, and does he have the base conditioning to run a 12:50? I doubt that. But if they run that in 13:10, like the last major championships have all been run, he's going to have to produce a 52, 53 second last lap, and he clearly just doesn't seem to have the conditioning to do that either. So I don't see him being a medal threat in the 5,000 at all, never mind winner.
Well, no, especially because those 5,000-meter runners who doubled up and did the 10K just had a walk in the park today. They didn't really try. So he could have done with a fast race, couldn't he, in the 10K today?
Yeah, it would have helped his chances. But I'm afraid this season is probably best consigned to the history books or the past for Ingebrigtsen. Just on Koech, I was relieved. Not that's the wrong word. I think the judges made the right call to not reinstate him. Whenever a big name goes down, there's always this temptation to say, just put him through, especially because it's a round and you're only going to put them through to the semi. It's not the final, so they're still going to have to earn the place in the final. But if you watch that incident, they were all bunched together. The pace was slow. He finds himself in lane 3, 4 maybe, and then coming around the bend with about 380 to go, he tries to move in to get an inside lane. And I think he causes his own... you could argue that he got a little bit of a push, but he got the push because he was cutting across people. So I think they made the right call. I think it would have been a soft reinstatement if they'd gone with it. Nevertheless, it's a pity because he's a big name and you want to see these guys in the final, but I think it was the correct decision.
Indeed. So there were a few other qualifying events. We had the women's 400. Nothing exciting happening there. McLaughlin Levrone, she qualified with the second fastest time. Obviously, she's normally a hurdler, so this is the first time we've seen her in a major championships, isn't it, in the 400?
Yeah.
She did actually look very good, of course, while doing it. And this is my second spot question. Will the women's 400 meters record fall to her in this Olympic cycle?
No.
That's a no.
No, I don't think so. That's 47.6, and she's at 48.7. And I think this year she's at 48.9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at it, like Paulinho has a 48.1. I think when she won the Olympics last year, she won it in 48.1. And NASA is a 48.3, 48.4. So McLaughlin Lerone's actually got to improve by half a second to get level with those two. Now, I don't know what sort of form Paulinho and NASA are in. NASA looked really good when she beat Paulinho in the Diamond League final. It's very difficult to call this final, actually, because I think there's an expectation that McLaughlin Lerone will win this final. But she's got somewhere to go. If those two are at their best, McLaughlin Lerone needs to improve by half a second to beat them, and that's a lot.
I sort of assumed that she was just going to walk away with this just on because presence, but perhaps not.
And it's weird because the women's 400, Paulinho and NASA, Paulinho especially, is really good and gets spoken about very little. It's a weird one. I don't know whether it's a language thing or just the women's 400. It's kind of like caught in the middle between the glam of the middle distances and obviously the prestige of the other way around, the glam of the sprints, the prestige of the middle distances. But she's a much better athlete than I think gets credit for. And if she is, and she hasn't shown it this year, to be clear, but she hadn't last year before Paris either. But if those two are in the best condition that they've been in, McLaughlin Lerone is going to have to run really well to beat them. It's a more intriguing race than I think some people anticipate because they're a little bit high on McLaughlin Lerone's dominance in the hurdles. And to be clear, she could well do it because she's never been asked to run a 48-2 400. But to come back to your question, once you get to 48.1, you still need another half a second to get that world record. That feels like a bridge too far to me.
Okay, fair enough. Because the women's 400 then is far more uh, competitive than I thought, because we had the heats of the men's 400 today, and I couldn't find anything interesting about them at all, to be honest with you, including, I mean, Ja'Cory Patterson was probably, well, a class above, it looked like everybody else. But are we going through a bit of a fallow time, do you think, with the men's 400 meters?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Because remember, it used to be, it was Warrener, Karani James, LaShawn Merritt, Wade Finnickak, and now it sort of feels like it's stalled a little bit, yeah.
Karani James, he has qualified. I mean, they have qualified. It just doesn't feel like there's any spark there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, 48.17 for Paulinho is the PB from August last year, so they would have been in Paris to win that. I mean, that's a crazy fast time. It's how she doesn't get more. Anyway, we'll see what she's got in Tokyo. If she beats McLaughlin, she'll be a headline piece for sure.
The only other things I really noted today was in the men's high jump qualification. Tamberi didn't qualify. He went straight out really, pretty much at 3 fouls at 2:21. And then we had the women's 100-meter hurdles qualifying as well. And that final actually is going to be tomorrow. So I think that one, as far as I can see, comes down to just a straight up battle between Russell and Williams. I can't see anybody else getting a look in on that one.
I think
or maybe Stark.
I think the Dutch Nadine Visser.
Yeah,
I'd say she's an outsider for a medal. The thing about the hurdles, especially in a final when it's close, is someone always makes a technical mistake.
Yeah.
And the technical mistake in the hurdles is not like a technical mistake in a 100-meter race like Sha'Carri made or someone where you can just keep going. You actually, 3 out of 10 times you fall over, you know. So I think the hurdles is one of the most difficult events to call. And so you'd say Russell, yes, but I'll say one of those 4 that we've just mentioned will come 8th.
Any chance of Amundsen sneaking in there? Or is she over the hill a bit?
I don't think she hasn't shown enough this season for me to improve that much. But yeah, I'd say Russell's the favourite. But if Nadine, if Visser can run clean, it is Nadine Visser, right? The Dutch athlete.
Visser, yeah.
Yeah, Visser, yeah.
She's the, yeah.
That's an outside shot for a medal. And as I say, one of those 4 will be 8.
The second medal going tomorrow is in the men's 3,000-meter steeplechase, which is another chaotic race.
Yeah.
And I only found that image. I sent you a photo earlier on, didn't I? Of Beamish having his face trodden on.
Yeah, it's up on the screen now for those of you watching it.
Qualifying, yeah. I put it in Discourse as well, so you can see it there.
So those of you listening, you can check it out on Discourse. But basically, he's obviously fallen over a barrier, and as he's rolled, the Canadian has basically stood squarely on his face. That's great. He gets up, by the way, and qualifies looking like a real chance of a medal in this final.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough. I'm not going to lie. I don't know enough about the 3,000. I know El Bakali is the favourite. And I'm rooting for Germa after his fall in the Olympic Games and right on his head and the fall.
Well, Germa's the world record holder.
Yeah, but he hasn't been showing it recently, is he? Well, he hasn't raced recently. Remember we said he was out with concussion for a long time, wasn't he?
That injury that he got in Paris has kept him out for like 10 months. And he did make a comeback. I see he's got an 8:07 this year, so he's running at least one reasonably good race. But no one really knows what he's got, because before that injury, leading up to Paris, he was running every Diamond League race, winning most of them. He looked like the guy who was going to end Al-Bakkali's reign, and of course we know that ended very badly. But I hope that he's in the sort of shape that he threatened to be in for Paris last year, because then that will be a really good race between those two. If he's not, then Bakkali looks comfortable, and behind him, any one of 7 people could split the other 2 medals.
Tell me, what makes people become a 3,000-meter steeplechaser? Is it because they're not good enough to do the 1,500 and the 5,000?
Not always.
What makes you do it?
Not always, because the first man who ever went under 8 minutes for the steeplechase was a Kenyan called Moses Kiptanui, and he held the 3,000 steeplechase and 5,000-meter world records at the same time. That was in a period in the mid-90s, I want to say 1995. And then Gebre Selassie took it off him. They had a famous race in Zurich where Kiptanui had just broken it, and Gebre Selassie took it back eventually, not in that particular race. But sometimes they are exceptional flat middle distance athletes. But honestly, I don't know what makes someone go to that event in the first instance.
Is there anything about having to do the hurdles that sort of say you had Ingebrigtsen and you said, right, go and do the 3,000 hurdles. Would he really struggle with the technique of a
Well,
hurdle? Because
I,
it knocks him out of his stride.
I stand
I don't know.
corrected on this, and I'm going to sort of stall my answer and speak extra slowly, because I think Ingebrigtsen is a steeplechase champion at European level. And he joked.
Why did I pick him?
Yeah, I know, you shouldn't have picked him. But it gives us a chance to throw a bit of... yeah, he won the 3,000 metre steeplechase at the Norwegian Championships at one
Here
point.
we go. So
Um,
everybody can do it. It's just not the coolest of sports, is it, compared to the others? Like the 1,500.
no, so I want to see whether I can find... He's got his 3,000 metre steeplechase personal best. 8:26 as an under 20, as an under 18, in fact. In 2017, Ingebrigtsen ran 8:26, which is not bad for an 18-year-old. And I only know that because Ingebrigtsen joked before these championships to say that maybe he would run that event instead. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But I don't know. Maybe someone listening can inform us a little bit about what the pathway is. Kenya used to produce all these steeplechase athletes, and it was really prestigious there. And so it was actually a very attractive event to be. You know, you think back to Kemboy, who was their guy before Albakali. Kemboy was the dominant force in steeplechase. He was a rock star in Kenya. And if you were the best Kenyan, you were the best in the world, and you were pretty big. So I don't think it's necessarily a consolation event for many athletes, but it would be interesting to know how the likes of Geordie Beamish, whose face we've just seen getting trodden on, Ruppert from Germany, who's another one of those 7 who could win a minor, or actually not just minor, he could win the race. I don't know how they came to that particular event. I think the technical side of it is important enough that you can't just switch and win it.
Okay. There we go. I've learned something new anyway. So we've got the men's marathon early on a Monday morning. They'll be loving that one. And as I said yesterday about the women's, or when we did the preview for the women's, it doesn't feel like the deepest field again to me. We've got a couple of the Ethiopians. We've got Tekeli and Galeta running. We've got Ngetich from Kenya, Kiplangat from Uganda. It doesn't seem the strongest because Sawyer's not there. Obviously, we've passed the era now, haven't we? Of mine's gone blank. Ran 2 hours.
Kipchoge.
Kipchoge, thank you.
Kipchoge's on a sort of what's the word when you do like a sort of ceremonial tour?
Yeah, he's on his lap of honor.
Testimonial's the word I was looking for. He's in New York. I think we mentioned yesterday. But yeah, that era is gone now, and the marathon's wide open. But you're right, this field is not strong. I think the women's field was quite strong in the sense that it had Tokyo, Doha, former Olympic champion, former world record holder. This field doesn't have really much of that, except, as you noted there, the winner from Tokyo this year, right?
Yep.
So, right. Yeah, it's a tough one to call. I mean, we've seen today what can happen if the men go through halfway in like 107, which is possible given the conditions. Suddenly it's anyone not anyone's, but there's about 7 or 8 people who suddenly come into it, and if they'd gone through it in 104, wouldn't have featured.
I'm hoping the Emil Cairns from Great Britain has a good race.
Is he in it?
I'm pretty sure he's in it, yeah.
I was in Leeds last week and I saw him doing what must have been one of his final tune-up sessions for this race.
Perhaps he's not in it and I've got that wrong.
Well, it would be a really interesting tune-up session because he was running it with another athlete who posted the session afterwards, so I got a sense for it. But I mean, they were just going around and around the track non-stop. It didn't look like an interval session. But what they ended up doing is 15 800 hard, 800 easy. And
yep, he's in it.
So there you go. So that was his tune-up. So they give you insights into how they tuned for it. It was 15 800s on, which were run at 2:55 a kilometer pace, 15 800s off, which were run at 3:10. So basically, it was a continuous 30 times 800.
Ooh, that sounds nasty.
This was a hell of a session. They were paced by a guy on a bicycle, and it was 2 laps at 2:55, 2 laps at 3:10 okay, 2 laps at 2:55, just for 24 kilometers on the track. He must have. It's basically running a half marathon in an hour and then some. Unbelievable.
He's doing a week or so out from the marathon. I thought they were to taper.
That'll be part of the tape, I reckon, because that's a sort of race pace simulation thing for 24K.
That's a taper.
That was a
Wow.
crazy session.
I thought tapering was
The
like
guy-
sitting with your feet up eating donuts.
I can't remember.
That's where I've been going wrong.
I'm not revealing because one of the guys put it on Strava. One of the two guys, whose name and I can't remember, but he was in the Olympics last year, came 5th in London, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. He's the 5th fastest British athlete ever in the marathon. But he put that session on Strava, so I'm not revealing anything that was meant not to be. But
I did wonder when you started saying that.
No, that was I looked it up. I wanted to know what they were doing because we were in a meeting and just the meeting room overlooks the track and they were just going round and round and round. I was like, my goodness, these guys are doing something here.
Wow.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to note about the marathon was somebody posted on Discord about Stephen Sower. He's going to have at least 25 unannounced out of competition doping tests before running the Berlin Marathon. Now, this is all being paid for by Adidas, his primary sponsor. He says, I'm tired of reading what people write in the press and on social media. There's always a doubt or accusation when the athlete is a Kenyan. I do, however, recognise that doping is a huge problem in our country. We cannot deny this or avoid the topic. To do so would be a mistake. So he's going through this massive voluntary doping testing procedure to run in Berlin. So I think they're lining up a world record or sub-2 marathon attempt.
It has to be a world record attempt, right? I mean, he wouldn't go to Berlin otherwise.
No.
Must be,
so,
because he's the best guy now, in the aftermath of Kipton's death and Kipchoge's retire. Well, not retire, but you know what I mean. He's the heir apparent to that particular throne. So Berlin has to be his shot at it. So I agree with you. They're trying to ensure that whatever happens in Berlin is credible.
Mm-hmm. Can he do it? Part 3 of my questions.
Yes, I think so. I forget. He was the fastest debutant ever, faster than Kipton was, and then he won London earlier this year. Is that right? Is my memory correct there?
I think so. Yeah.
So that's the same pedigree as Kipton coming into it. So you have to say yes.
He ran 2:02:03 to win in London.
Yeah. So if you can do that in London, and you've also come off the Valencia time before that, you are the real deal. So I think so.
That's one to keep an eye out for. I know it's not the Athletics Championship, so I thought I'd slip it in there.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, should be a good one. I mean, less sort of high profile. The 100 meters is always the big one. Got that out the way now. And I think, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So just remind me, it's the steeplechase final and the 100 meter hurdles for women. Those are the two big finals tomorrow.
Yep, and the men's marathon. Oh, we got the men's pole vault because that's going to be really intriguing. And the women's hammer, which I know nothing about.
You never know. No one would have picked Jimmy Gressier, and Jimmy Gressier was almost one of two extremely surprising French results today. The other one was not in track and field; it was in rugby. But we said we weren't going to talk about it, so we'll leave it. But you never know. Mondo could lose that.
French won.
Yeah, easily in the end. 5 points.
Yeah. As good as a country mile. Yeah, and then the women's hammer. So that'll be run. So with your theory, that's an American win, right?
I don't know. I don't follow hammer enough to know. I'm pretty sure. I know on the men's side, North America's good at the hammer. I'm not as confident on the women. There's a couple of good athletes from the US in there that I just couldn't. I'm not going to predict anything there. Right. I only make predictions when I'm very sure.
Okay. I'll leave you now. I won't make any more predictions today. There we go.
Okay, that's a wrap then. Yep.
Yep.
Tomorrow, same thing. I don't know about same time, same place. It'll be same place anyway. I don't know about the time, but we'll do our best to bring you the reaction from tomorrow. We have the men's 15 semis tomorrow. Let's hope for no more major eliminations in the men's semis before that big final. And we will speak to you all then. Enjoy the men's marathon in the morning. For now, goodbye.